Hello people, this is Ryder here to review the Kamen Geats Jyamato Awakening DX Plosion Rage Buckle. So after it being omitted from the show entirely, Buffa finally gets his final form in the form of Plosion Rage, as we can see the buckle right there and the form right there. Really do like that, obviously, despite the fact that this being a DVD/Blu-ray pack-in. The box format is still pretty formal, in line with all the other premium Bandai items, despite this technically being a retail item. Top here basically shows the two formations of the buckle plus the form. Plosion Rage. Again, really appreciate this still being a thing. Bottom has the cautions and warnings. Has two LR44s included. Contents. QR code for the PDF file. Did I miss a letter? And just what it does and such, which is pretty neat. So we will cut to this with the set in full. Also, I should mention this. Obviously, in traditional premium Bandai fashion, they miscredit this as just Geats, as opposed to this being credited under the Visa Next, which I think this is the first time they've done it in a while. Yeah, because the Revice sets didn't do that. Alright, so here we have the set sealed in its traditional fashion. As you can tell, it's very tall. And, you know, interestingly, they made this orange, obviously, to contrast with the box itself and such. As I generally do prefer the boxes of where it has to accommodate for the item as opposed to the other way around, just because I feel like these inserts are really weird when it comes to those terms and such. But also at the same time, you have to take it out this way, even though this should technically be the top. However, I don't know why they did this, and I think it's unfortunate they're starting it here. But they have transitioned the Ryder VCNext Blu-ray cases to just be DVD cases, which I think is super unfortunate, because again, I still have it, even though I shouldn't. This is the Revice Forward set. As you can tell, it's an annual Blu-ray case and such, because it's transparent and it actually says Blu-ray. But it looks like they're taking the Sentai route and just slap Blu-ray content in a DVD case, which is kind of cheap and lazy. But I think, I don't know, I want to just assume they probably did this just because of the size of the box, just to accommodate for that size. But then again, if that was the case, then they should have just made the insert a bit longer then. I don't know, but we'll get to actually opening this. So here we have the raised buckle out and such, to which, unlike Plosion, Plosion Sword, this one actually came together in one piece, but just like that one, we're going to actually cover it separately. So, here's the right half of Plosion Rage, to which is the main sound side, as you can see the speaker from here, and such. It's a really interesting, size buckle as a whole. Like I'll talk more about it when we actually have it together. But here's the standard 074 track. Obviously the button for it to know it's inserted in the desired driver. We have the handle, the switch. What was this called? Like, other than that, there's not really too much to go on. It's mainly a black base with highlights of purple, and then like obviously mainly just orange because of the claws and such, and the translucent orange basically that is similar to Monster and such. I won't do the main thing it's supposed to do yet. Here's the left side of Plosion Rage, to which is a lot. Obviously, this side doesn't have the sound effects, but it still has a mechanism. This one is still 077, so we know what that's going to do and such. And as you can see from here, this one actually does still have a QR code spot, obviously because Gamba Rising no longer exists. That's not present, and this one still actually does have a switch for the desired driver and such. As you can see here, we have two clips right there, and then the two ends right there and such. But this one we will show off because this one actually doesn't trigger anything when we flip it. And this one for sure is a lot more springier of a switch. Like, because you really need to put some force to, or you really need to fight with this one a lot more, which is interesting. Also, I want to point this out. I have a paint splash there. Other than that, obviously when you combine the two together to be the full Plosion Rage buckle, it's really nice overall. I was worried that this was basically a Plosion sword retooling just because of the nature of, oh, you take big buckle, you split it into two, and then you put it in the desire driver. However, obviously, as we've looked around through this entirely, this is an entire new mold. The only thing obviously similar to Plosion sword obviously is just that you split it in half. And that basically it's just one gigantic buckle. And to the extent of that, I think this actually improves a lot on some aspects of Plosion sword. And again, I just like the designs that are on the buckle, because I think what's cool about this is that obviously due to the nature of how this came to be, it's kind of cool that this is basically, it takes design cues from the Jyamato buckle, but obviously mixing it in with like what Zombie had established and such. So it's like a nice mixture of both what Zombie has established, of like Zombie and the Jyamato buckle and such. As you can see there, this doesn't do anything and such. But when we do flip this, we have this entire mechanism open, because it opens this switch opens up the entirety of that. And the way this works, you fold it back and just do that, is that this side obviously folds out, but as you can see here, a little post pops out and such, meaning that whenever this gets pressed in, that pops out too, as it's just simply this button and such. Also, I'll say this too, these parts are still removable, I think just due to safety reasons. Obviously just in case what happened to me multiple times, of the possibility of you trying to open this up accurately but end up slamming it too hard that this half falls to the ground. This comes off, but if that happens, just clip it back in and slide that in, because you can tell already I've already scuffed this up because it fell on the ground like 3 times. But that is the buckle by itself. We will take the pull tab off. This side obviously doesn't do anything. However, we will get the sounds from this side, to which we will get up to 3. So that's just the first sound of it opening up. That is the second sound, and then the third sound's the most interesting one. That's the sound of splitting the buckle in half. Which, I like that they did give you the time, or like give you that pause, so then you could accurately achieve it. But obviously because of the nature of battery exhausting, like, you know, you're gonna have to deal with trying to close it up in like basically half a second before you accurately do it. However, if you were to hold down the switch, for the first time in this toy line, we have a DX raise buckle that has phrases. What a miracle that we get to experience this in a post-series release. Because obviously, most of the time, or obviously, because the only other toys we have of raised buckles that have phrases are obviously premium DX items, which are technically different from DX items. Because the only things we had that had phrases of the DX line were the sound core IDs and technically the Zillion driver. But like I said, this is the first DX raise buckle to have phrases. And speaking of those phrases, we have 4 more Michinaga phrases. And then if we were to do it again, it would just cycle back to the first sound that you got from holding it down. And then to go back into the normal mode, just hold this down again. To which you just get that. Obviously, it would have been more cooler if it actually just said Plosion Rage Buckle. But I don't mind that it doesn't announce itself because Bujin Sword didn't announce itself. So let's get the desired driver. I'm like barely scaling this out and such, but again, I'll go through this entire process with you to try to get this accurately done. So you want to at least set this, you want to go through the first 2 sounds. Oops. Which I just reset this thing. So basically, what you want to do at this point is that obviously in a quick succession, you want to flip this in, you want to push this face, you want to push the bull face in, close both claws, and then get ready to separate when the sound plays. I didn't hit the trigger at all. We messed up. Alright, yeah, we lost time then. Yeah. Anyways, you want to insert both sides of the raised buckle like so. Obviously, we need Buffa's core ID. Obviously, you want to make sure this sound doesn't trigger anything, but it's like a 50% chance it will. So there we have the standby for the buckle. And obviously, as you can see, the full 7 LED underneath the orange plastic. And then obviously to complete the transformation, just swing this down. Either way. Now we have Buffa Plosion Rage, to which, I'll be honest, I wasn't really too big into this at first, because it was just like, it's whatever, it's Buffa, I don't care. And that goes with the sounds too. But honestly, actually having this in person, it's very impressive and such. I like this entire silhouette of, like, basically, you know, doing like the claw thing and such. And then like the buffalo or the bull becoming this like getting this like mechanical helmet and like the black horns and such. And again, like, I like the vine design that's around like the circular part because that's very reminiscent of the Jyamato buckle. And just the fact that this purple circle is like heavily raised and such. And again, like I actually like these on the side and such, even though I would have, my only gripe is that I would have liked if it was like an evolved version of like switching this around as opposed to being the same thing like the zombie buckle, but now technically being less because show-wise, the zombie buckle obviously was able to lock itself in. I wished in a way, I do like the fact that obviously you only need to swing this switch down once to open both sides, but I wish it was in a way that you were able to do both, but obviously that means this side technically can't do anything then, and obviously I appreciate that this side still does things. Silhouette-wise, this is honestly such a perfect size. Like, nothing feels too large, nothing feels too big, like, the proportions of this feel really nice and such. And again, like, because of the base being black, it blends itself really well on the desired driver and such. Like, again, this is like probably one of the, it just feels really, it's like a really nice size overall. Obviously, for being a power-up buckle, we do have 2 finishers, so just simply swing this. I shouldn't use swing. I guess flip? Twist? Twist it. Yeah, twist. So there's the Plosion Rage Strike, and then we do this twice. Plosion Rage Victory! Very standard. I kind of wish there was a standby phase, just like with Plosion Sword. Like, you sheath it in, and then it starts the standby phase, and then you pull it out, and then it does the finisher. Like, I know it technically would have been simpler. I just kind of wish, like, you flipped it once, it does a standby, you flipped it again, you get the strike. Then you flip it again once, but then you do it twice to do the victory. I kind of wish that was the case. I will go through the sounds for this now, just because it's what you expect. Because of course it will just do the great sounds. And then to take it out, you want to fold the horn in, you want to fold these back in, and then admittedly so, this is the most difficult buckle to remove, so I just suggest for you, hold on to, like, try to hold on to these switches, or like just, you know, one of these horn parts, and then press both sides in. Because I think I forgot to talk about this. I just appreciate how much more sturdier this buckle is compared to Plosion Sword, because this has like a really satisfying click when you like separate it. It just feels really nice and such. Because obviously the way Michinaga separates it is basically like this and such. And it just feels really nice. And speaking of how Michinaga does it, if we go back to phrase mode, so obviously we're going to form this back, we're going to separate it like so, and we're just going to transform like so. And then we're going to let the standby play like normal. Obviously, to be more accurate, you want to flip this the moment Michinaga says Henshin, because that's how he did in the VSNX. To which I really appreciate that it's just kind of already manually in there. Obviously it's going to suck for people, obviously, because then you don't have that control. Because, you know, it's like, well, what if I want to do it immediately and such? But obviously, again, this is not a premium DX item. It's a DX item. And for new things in this mode, if we were to hold this down once again, So that is his pre-finisher phrase, because if we were to do the strike again, we get that phrase after. So I really like how they work that in. Victory isn't. Victory is the exact same thing, as we would demonstrate. Plosion rage victory! Obviously, it makes sense as to why the victory isn't changed, because in the Vis and X, it was during like a montage and such, like an action montage. And that is basically it for this thing's desired driver usage. Obviously, to switch it back, we'll do that, and just like what we did with Doom's Geats, we will use this with the Zillion driver. Don't you think I need to be quiet? That's louder than this thing. Obviously, we have to play with the mirrors, so of course we're gonna have to deal with trying to censor ourselves without the effort. So obviously we have to wash out the mirrors, so then it's easier on me. There. This is gonna go off now. But one thing I guess I should bring up is that this cannot actually go on either the Magnum Shooter nor the Geats Buster, because both sides cannot actually, because of the fact that, because of this part of where it covers the core ID, it can't insert itself into the weapons, because, like, obviously reasonably so. I think without this part it probably could have, but I think I was more surprised with this part because it's literally just oh, first of all, obviously you need to open that up, but it can't even reach. It can barely get itself in there, because obviously you don't want to force it in like that, because then you're gonna have issues. Like that. So yeah, I don't advise it. But other than that, I don't know how we're going to display, because, like, I guess the only thing that is unfortunate is that you can't set this one up. But my thoughts on Plosion Rage overall is that this is a really phenomenal Vis and X item. Like, this one genuinely like made me genuinely enjoy it, because like what Rita fell, like what I was saying before, like at first I wasn't really too excited about this release, just because it's like it's buffa, and like, you know, it's a thing of where it's like we should have gotten this already in the show, and like it doesn't help that this thing took forever. Not like, it's not that it took forever. Oops. It just doesn't help that like this was a really late release for a Vis and X, because even Metsubo Jinrai didn't feel like forever. But I think it's because at least with Metsubo Jinrai, I was just like, oh well, I mean that's not too bad, because that mean, because like Metsubo Jinrai was in like June, or like was in July, and then like Vulcan and Valkyrie is going to be in November still. So it's like, like we had two of these releases coming up, so it's just like, oh, okay, that's fine then, because it just makes that gap shorter. But obviously, because this is a singular release, and like what we established before, Doom's Geats was already released like months prior. So to just wait for this one for longer, like I don't know why for VSNXs they like, I guess toy video basically, I don't know why these like bigger items have to be released later, because I think this could have ideally just been a May release or even at least June. But like July, I think that's too like, that's kind of like, it's kind of cutting it close. But obviously, like, I guess it's not too bad because it's a Geats item and there's still Geats toys being released. So, however, this is technically the last DX item, because obviously all the Geats items we've been getting have been premium DX, and I guess like, unless you exclude the sound quality and such, but like all the Geats items for the most part have been premium DX. So for our last outing for the DX line, yeah, this is pretty good. Like, I honestly expected it just to function or just to be in the same stance or in the same line as Plosion Sword, of just like, okay, we get the one singular sound and buckle mode, and then like, you get the three sounds you get in the desired driver, and like that was basically going to be it. But I have to give them credit where it's due about the fact that they added phrase mode. Obviously, obviously it's a VSNX item, so of course you would expect it. The issue is that they didn't even market that. They never told us that there are Michinaga phrases in this thing. It wasn't until people looked at that third bubble on the back of the box and they're like, wait, this thing has lines. Or like, people were looking at the manual and they're like, wait, this thing has lines. And it's just, I don't get why Bandai did that. I don't know why they never advertised the fact that this, like, yeah, I know it's like, well, of course it's expected. It's a VSNX item, but it's like Bandai wasn't like Bandai. First of all, can I just say, like, Bandai does the worst job at like promoting these VSNX items, because they barely, like, and this is just in general with Ryder and Sentai, they barely update the product pages. They barely give us anything. They give us just like the very quick, like, oh, here's the transformation, and like here's the item announcement, here's the transformation, and it's just like very quick blurs. It's like less like highlights than a normal premium Bandai item. That's why I thought it was weird. Like, reasonably so, that like we knew more about Doom's Geats than the Plosion Rage buckle. Like, it's not like and they announced details about both of them at the same time. No, it was Doom's Geats first. Like, we knew about Plosion Rage later, but it's like, I felt like we barely knew anything about this thing. That's why I just wasn't that excited for it, despite the fact that it's like, okay, like, cool, like, I'll get this. Like, I'm getting it and such, and like, covering it, and like, whatever, but like just messing around with it, actually playing with it, just it feels nice to play with, and just like, again, the sounds, I think I've kind of grown to like them a bit, even though if I find them a bit generic in terms of buffa, just because it's like, oh yeah, of course it's buffa, so we gotta have a guitar riff standby. But like, other than that, like, and like, again, like, I've already mentioned my gripes with some things about it. Like, obviously, just like Doom's Geats, it's really up to you whether or not you want to pick this up immediately, or if you really want to wait a year and a half from now for them to announce the premium DX version that's actually going to basically be like Plosion Sword, and actually have the separation sound happen when you actually separate them, as opposed to having to wait and then like separate them on that. And like obviously, like what I said, including phrases from Buffa, the Jyamato King, the rest of the cast and such. It's really up to you. And obviously it's probably gonna play creators and such, because now they're adding BGM tracks into these things, because they're really on the line of like, oh, we're DX but we're not real, or like we're CSM but not really. It's really up to you. But honestly, like, I do think this toy by itself is pretty nice. It's really good. Like, I'm genuinely surprised to say that. So that had to do this review. That wasn't enough. This is Ryder, and I'll leave it, people. Bye.